Hello, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. We got a few things we're going to dabble on today. Going to give you an update on the NatashMontreal. I'm still waiting. She hasn't actually commented yet herself, but there is a person named Joe Warmington who said he had a conversation with her, so I'm going to read that off to you. We're also going to just do one little post on how mainstream is kind of talking about the Buttongate scandal. There's a bigger kind of scandal going on that a lot of people are missing out on, although they're starting to kind of post a lot of threads to it about this whole, do you believe the polls? I've been kind of digging on this since I realized who the people were that were in the picture. This goes back to a couple like rallies almost a week ago. There's a lot more to this than meets the eye. This is huge, ties into the Fords, ties into the provincial Liberals and the federal Liberals. I just got to try and find a lot more evidence. I keep falling down other rabbit holes with more names, more people, more individuals, and this seems to be huge. It is. There are a lot of people working to try to not to get Pierre and the Conservatives elected, and Doug Ford is one of them, because he's obviously aware of these attacks and he's not saying anything, nor has he actually came out and endorsed Pierre Poilievre, which is the dead giveaway right there. Then we're going to kind of get involved with this whole Honda thing. And if we have time, we're going to move on. There's also an update about the guy who lit that police officer on fire and a lady who had her bank accounts seized, yes, the moment she said she was running for the PPC. Let's get started with this Natasha update. This is disgusting. So Joe Warmington had put on there, this is an ongoing thread. There's been a few posts. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm just going to read off kind of his first start and then his conversation that he had with her, what she had wrote. So he had mentioned that they should be probed. She is not a criminal and should not be treated as such. It's not supposed to be an authoritarian state here. And if there is tolerance for anti-Semites, why do what they do? There should be those for legally filming them. I think what he meant to say is if there's rules to protect the anti-Semites, why aren't there rules to protect the people filming them? Which is obvious. First, we should be protecting anti-Semites to begin with, obviously. So this is what she told me in a DM. So thank you for your support. I got home not long ago from the hospital and haven't slept in 31 hours and have basically been crying on and off and in shock. I am bereft. He put his hands on me. They were wrenching me when I was on the ground. I thought they would seriously injure me. I thought they were going to dislocate my shoulders. He assaulted me again in the cop car, pretending to do up my seatbelt when my hands were behind me in cuffs. I was kicking the chair in front for the other cop to help me, and he pretended nothing was happening, which isn't surprising. You can see all the live footage in my previous episode. What these cops did, it's not only disgusting, they broke the rules, and I'm going to show you a picture that this one cop should maybe be charged for indecent, I don't know. I'll show you the picture. You let me know what you think. The cuffs were so tight that my right hand went numb. What happened is very wrong, and when I have rested and I am less afraid, and after I speak to a lawyer, I will post a short comment. I'm not comfortable with what I witnessed on Alexia's video and pics, and also what Natasha alleges happened earlier, and I would appreciate the leaders take this serious and professionally probe this incident. You can pretend it's okay to manhandle a reporter, but it is not. And it is so true. Now, Alexei also put out a post because there is a so-called journalist who's a piece of crap, who's running a protectionist for the Liberals. And like I've said in previous episodes, I've been across this country lots. Quebec has the worst propaganda media in Canada. The narratives that they have been pumping down Quebecers' throats is undeniably anti-Canadian. I can't say it any other way. It's anti-Canadian, and obviously, really is it amplifies this hate for the West, which is why we see what we see in the polls all the time. Anyways, this is what Alexandra Levay. If you don't know who Alexandra Levay is, she works for the Rebel. I really admire her. She is a true reporter. Like I say on many episodes, she wears the soles of her shoes out, walking the beat to get the news and real stories out to Canadians. She was there firsthand. Those two were actually talking when all of this went down. This is what she had to say about this bogus article that's in French, in a French magazine. Mr. PL claims to be a journalist, yet he didn't bother contacting either Natasha Graham or myself before producing this piece of journalistic garbage. He accuses Natasha of provoking and insulting protesters based on selectively edited clips spread by radical anti-Israel activists. Now, this is what the left does. This is what the propaganda arm of the government does, our mainstream media. This is why I always post all my information down in the comments below. That way, anybody who says, oh, you're clipping that wrong, no. The whole thing is there, and I try to go right to the original source so that all of the information is there. And I'm not clipping, I'm not editing this. Sorry, just the truth, just the facts. Furthermore, her arrest didn't happen at 8 p.m., as he falsely claims, but rather around 5:40 p.m. Mr. Pion didn't even attempt to read the articles Mrs. Graham has written as a freelancer, yet he feels entitled to discredit her by pointing out she isn't listed in the registry of the Fédération Professionnelle des Journalistes du Québec, or the Association des Journalistes Indépendants du Québec. Newsflash, no one is required to be on these registries, especially ones dominated and influenced by leftist journalists like him. Alexei, breath of fresh air, this woman. So true. As for the arrest, Natasha simply removed the police officer's hands from her hips after he aggressively grabbed her, telling him not to touch her, which is her right to do so. Mr. Pio conveniently ignores the multiple assaults committed against us by protesters, yet dishonestly draws comparisons to Alex Jones. Again, this is what they do. But this is great. Who, like many others, was disturbed by the aggressive and disgraceful nature of this arrest. Well, of course, anybody who sees it would be disgraced. Like, it's just, this is beyond horrible. Mr. Pio has truly hit rock bottom. If this is what journalism has become, he just exposed its most pathetic form. And there's the article, Manifestation pro-Palestine, un prétendu journaliste indépendant arrêté in Montreal. Garbage reporting, more propaganda media. And now, here's some of the pictures, okay? Now, I paused on the previous episode these clips to show you. This is a 200-some-plus pound man. I don't know, I've never met Natasha. She looks like a fairly petite lady. The leverage and power difference that this officer is putting on her is undeniably beyond aggressive. She is very fortunate to have not had a broken wrist, dislocated elbow, and broken ribs with the amount of pressure they were pushing on her on these cement or granite steps. Not good. And now this is what started, I guess, the whole main part. Look at how he's groping her. It's right there. There's like, hello, this is unedited. This is the real McCoy without any reason to do so. Why is he grabbing her? Why has he got her hands under her breasts like that? This is supposed to be a police officer. This isn't justice. This is a complete misrepresentation of what the police force should be doing. This man has to be held. He should be fired immediately. Immediately fired. And charges laid. Now, she's going to get a lawyer, which she stated. I urge you to support her. I know we're in Canada, everybody's broke, but if you can get a couple pennies to rub together, remember, she's fighting your taxes, the unlimited piggy bank of the federal government. She's going to need help. Let's try and do the best we can in order to make sure that this becomes part of the public eye and these horrible police officers are held to justice. Now, moving on a little bit further, there's a lot of people who are kind of got onto this now, and they're realizing that these two are part of the Ford campaign and Ford's supposed conservative party. They're not a conservative party, people. Now, these two Shara and Paul Makuchi. What I have been finding, like I said, this could be a huge story. I'm gonna try and get it out and make an episode as soon as I can, but like I stated earlier, I am tripping over rabbit holes. This goes deep. I don't want to give away exactly what I'm doing because there's a lot of people that watch my channel and then steal off of me or just steal all of the work I do through my links in order to make their own videos. But I promise you, this is much deeper than just a mild little campaign against the federal Conservative Party. There are more people involved in this, and the rabbit holes that are the deepest are showing things. There's a lot of money, resources, federal grants, permits, and legislation being passed. This involves the provincial Liberal and Conservative Party all the way up to the federal Liberal Party. I got to build like I said, I've got a lot more fact checking to do and a lot more information to find, but wow, this could be a bombshell and just one more that this little wee independent outlet of mine puts out. And if you haven't seen, check out my previous episodes. As time goes on, more and more evidence is coming out proving a lot of the hypotheses that I've been putting down in previous episodes are coming to fruition. They're true. So I urge you to check out my previous episodes. Now, this is one clip. I'm only going to show the one clip just to kind of save time, but I picked her because she nails the truth of it. Let's listen carefully to what she has to say. It's gospel.
think it's absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. This is the sort of thing that if conservative operatives were accused of doing, it would be absolutely egregious. The media would be talking about it nonstop. The Liberal campaign trying to blame junior staff is laughable. There is no way that junior staff are going out in the middle of the election and doing something like this, which is unsanctioned, which is in the middle of downtown Ottawa. So I just find it a bit rich to be blaming junior staff when clearly they were told to go and do this from someone very senior.
Now, she's absolutely right. This didn't come from Saskatchewan or BC, or this came from the head of the snake. Carney knew about this. And the proof that he knew about this is the fact that he didn't fire them. He reassigned them. This is American. You can't even really call it American. This is fascist tactics. How come the RCMP haven't laid charges yet? There was no information on those badges that they were produced by the Liberal Party, which legally there should have been. Where's the money trail on how these were actually put through, manufactured, and distributed? This all has to be put in to their election funding. All of this has to be. Why are the police not publicly came out and said, we have opened an investigation and we want names? They should be naming the people who are involved. Transparency, we need that. Something this government has completely removed from Canadian people is the actual transparency of our government. Once again, fascism, people. This is a disgrace. Let's move on. Now, there's talk about this Honda closing certain production and removing it down to the States. Now, this, they did a couple segments on it. It's stirring a bit of an awakening. Doug Ford's come out and said, oh no, he's talked, blah, blah. I've tried to fact check this, and I actually found not one, but two Japanese media outlets that have talked about this. And it's what they're not telling you. Now, I got to get myself a little translator. If you can, if you got a few pennies, support me, e-transfer, that would be great. I got to try and get one of these translators because the translators that are on a lot of these sites, I can't necessarily trust what the wording of them are, and it comes out in kind of garbage and gibberish. But it sounds as though it is definitely the retaliatory tariffs was the straw that broke the camel's back on why they're thinking about doing this, but it's a lot deeper than that. The one article kind of went into how the federal government itself is gifting taxpayers' money to bring in competitors in this market. And not only are they giving them billions of dollars, which is unfair practice, but they're also giving them tax incentives that none of these other factories get. And then both the articles pretty much come down to the line that yes, the tariffs were, the reciprocal tariffs that Canada put on was the straw that broke the camel's back, but their operating costs are escalating so fast that it's created an uncompetitive edge to other manufacturers in other countries, as well as in the US, where they have production facilities. Add that to the fact that the people themselves, so now you've got huge taxes on them, the carbon taxes that are going to be increased that they know are coming, the unpredictability of the Canadian market because of governments constantly manipulating and gifting money. Like this just keeps dominoing. And the one article even said it even shows how Canada's economy has no baseline. There is no standard rate of inflation because of the government's interference, which is causing heavy burdens on their employees that they can't pay more because they're not making enough profit to pay their employees more, which then leads to them needing to divest off of the people and start replacing them with robots. Previous episodes, people, I did a great one. If you're in the auto sector and you're going to vote Liberal, you are going to kill your own industry. You are going to lose your own job by your own vote, let alone throw all the taxes and all the rest of this infiltration and government manipulation. Add the 2035 no more combustion engines. Who do you think is going to be building all of these new plants, these new EVs? 90% less human contact in these factories. As they shut down all of these facilities with gas engines and they build new ones, do you think your job is safe? No, sir. No, ma'am. Careful who you vote for. Now, I'm going to run this little clip, and then we'll kind of carry on and go from there.
We're going to lead off with breaking news this hour about the U.S. trade war on Canada and U.S. President Donald Trump's attempt to force automakers, all manufacturers really, but automakers the focus here, to pull production from Canada and set up in the United States. There is a story out of Japan this morning that CBC News is working to confirm, but the Japanese news outlet Nikkei is reporting Honda Canada is considering moving some production to the United States out of Canada. Now, Honda Canada's plant is in the Ontario city of Alliston, and our CBC News drone has been flying over this. This is just northwest of Toronto. Nikkei is reporting this morning that Honda Japan is considering shifting production of the CR-V and the Civic sedan to the United States. The report does not name its sources, but it does cite Canada's retaliatory vehicle tariffs against the United States as being a factor. Here's the line. Canada has hit back with a retaliatory tariff on car imports from the United States, and as such, Honda will examine cutting back on the number of cars exported from the United States to Canada and gradually shifting to local production.
Now, like I said, I cannot confirm nor deny. From what I have found, it does seem that this is true. Now, Doug Ford does make a comment on this, but listen carefully. He's talking to the Canadian head He's not talking to the corporate head.
The phone with the president of Honda Canada, and they're sending a statement out clarifying what Reuters said. It's not accurate at all. They want to increase production down in the U.S. They're at 100% capacity right now. So they're going to make a statement, and I'll let them make their statement. But they're saying that's not accurate.
So there's a whole bunch of people in Alliston holding their breath in other factories across Canada. What do you say to them?
Well, we're going to keep Honda here, and I'll do everything I can to protect the people and their jobs. And that's what this throne speech is all about today, is making sure that we protect people's jobs, protect communities and businesses right across the province. We have to streamline processes to make sure we're more competitive around the world, attract new companies here. And that's exactly what our throne speech is and the mandate the people gave me after the election.
Okay, so
And yeah. Now, Carolyn Leavitt has come out kind of reaffirming Trump's goal. Now, there's this whole debate on whether or not who Trump wants to win. Now, either way is a win-win for Trump. Now, personally, I do believe that he would rather the Liberals win, because could you imagine how he would be in history forever if he did actually annex Canada and make it part of the United States of America? This would be huge for him, the conqueror, right? And he knows that we're infiltrated by China. So not only are we incredibly weak, which we are, he learned how weak we were during the first negotiations about the USMCA agreement. And the whole, like, how tough Canada was, and, he pretty much called Chrystia Freeland toxic and a disgrace, amongst other things. But with them, it was when he was dealing with them, not only did he realize kind of how weak we were, but how protectionist we were over certain things. And then throughout the course of his presidency, and then, of course, when he lost, he still had lots of connections and the ability to research top secret documents while he was building his new platform and new campaign to run again. In doing so, he discovered how badly infiltrated we were from who he deems to be America's greatest enemy, and I deem to be the world's greatest enemy, which is China. So if the Liberals win, we will be the 51st state. He'll crush us. Economically, he will crush us, especially with carbon taxes and all the rest of this. And the fact that we're like one of the heaviest tax peoples in the world, which is crazy considering we're also one of the richest resource countries in the world. It's complete. The math doesn't add up, but it's because you get, centrist governments who, they don't care about anybody else in Canada. They only care about their vote and getting power. Now, if Poilievre wins, it's a win because he ends up getting somebody who is going to remove China from all of the embedded influence that they have in our country, but it was also going to unleash the economic superpower we should be, and is aligned with a lot of the American beliefs. And this isn't just Republican beliefs. It's American beliefs. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion. All of the rights that should be given to citizens. This is something that Trump stands behind big time. He is a true lover of the Constitution of the United States. He lives by it. He swears by it. It's a big thing to him. So either way is a win-win, but I definitely think he would definitely prefer to see the Liberals win, because it gives him a way more powerful memory in the history books, which I think plays large on Trump. He wants to be that guy. And if you ever read The Art of the Deal, which I've read, it's you get to know a little bit more about him. And I've kind of watched Trump over the years. I watched back in the day when Oprah just swooned over him and wanted him to be the next president of the United States. So listen very carefully to what Carolyn Leavitt has to say.
Sure. On tariffs, Yesterday in the Oval Office...
Which outlet are you with?
The Canadian Public Broadcaster.
Oh, nice to see you.
Thank you. Yesterday in the Oval Office, President Trump suggested that there could be some help for automakers. I'm wondering what that looks like. Is it tariff relief on the 25% tariffs that are in place right now, or the new tariffs that are coming up in May on auto parts? And a second on Canada, if I may. President Trump's tone when it comes to Canada-U.S. relations, Canadians have noticed it's shifted a bit in the past few weeks. Ever since the election campaign started, he stopped talking about Canada becoming the 51st state, at least publicly. I'm wondering if that's on purpose and why.
I would reject the president's position on Canada has shifted. Perhaps he just hasn't been asked about Canada by questions from this group in the Oval Office, but they see him almost every day. But the president still maintains his position on Canada. The United States has been subsidizing Canada's national defense, and he believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. As for autos and auto parts, I don't have anything to read out for you there, but I think the point the president was making is flexibility, and he has flexibility when it comes to negotiations and talks, but ultimately his goal in his fair trade deals that he is pursuing with many countries around the world is to put the American worker first. And we had automakers and auto workers here at the White House on Liberation Day who believe in this president and his negotiating ability to put them first and to bring those jobs back to the United States of America. And the president's been very clear about that in his conversations with the automakers as well.
So like I said, I definitely think Trump is going to push for the Liberals. I think he's just trying to stay out of it personally, but I think he would definitely prefer the Liberals because he's already seen what they've done and how weakened we are on the national stage and economically. It's made it very easy for him to crush us economically. Let me know how you think in the comments. Now, this is Pierre Poilievre talking about, he had a great interview with Lily from the Toronto Sun. I urge you to watch this entire interview. It's really good. But listen to what he has to say about how he would deal with Donald Trump. It's a far cry from the clips, the little clips and edits that our propaganda arm puts out there.
Voters put their faith in you and your conservative team across the country. How do you handle Donald Trump, and how is your way of handling him different than Mark Carney? Do you call him right away? Do you start a negotiation? What do you do?
Well, what I would propose to him is suspend the tariffs and quickly renegotiate CUSMA, because this state of random, sudden waves of new tariffs is totally destabilizing both our economies. It's sending stock markets into a tailspin. And I would say to him, look, it's not in your interest to have this insanity. You think that the current arrangement is unfair. Well, let's negotiate a solution that ends the tariffs, protects our sovereignty, in exchange for which what we can offer is a much stronger Canadian military to carry our weight on the continent. Now, will he accept that? I don't know. He has been very unpredictable. Mr. Carney had a phone call with him and came out of it saying it was productive and that he made progress. And then 4 or 5 days later, Trump hit us with even more tariffs. And then the other day, Trump paused tariffs on almost every country in the world except Canada. So I kind of wonder what progress Mr. Carney is bragging about. I'm not blaming him for the tariffs, of course, but I am pointing out that his singular election promise is that he can, quote unquote, handle Donald Trump. So far, there's no evidence of that. What we need to do is focus on what we can control, which is to say, reverse all of the disastrous policies that Carney advised Justin Trudeau to put in place and that all the current Liberal MPs running for re-election helped impose. Those policies need to go. That is to say, we need to repeal the anti-energy law, C-69, repeal the industrial carbon tax, the energy cap, quickly approve LNG plants, factories, pipelines, etc.
I heard you say that, but how would you be different than Mark Carney saying, I'm going to call him up right away? I mean, do you take a different approach to trade negotiations? Or if you remember back to when we renegotiated NAFTA into CUSMA, the Americans published this long list of their objectives, or as required to by law. It wasn't Donald Trump being, really nice to anybody. They're required by law. Right. And it was all about better access for their producers, better access for their manufacturers, better access to our markets and the Mexican markets. Ours was, we wanted gendered language and environmental changes. There was nothing in what the Trudeau government put out that said we need better access. I mean, at the same time, we renegotiated, and we've been taken to the trade panel several times by the Americans saying you're not following the rule of the agreement. So there's obviously problems with the agreement. How would you be different?
Well, different than that, I would obviously put on the table things that the Canadians want and need, like we need an end to the softwood tariffs. It's crazy that we're being hit with 15% tariffs. By the way, those weren't imposed by Trump. Those were imposed by Biden. And Harper got them off 80 days after he became prime minister. I want an end to the softwood tariffs. Second, we need an end to Buy America for Canadian goods. We had an exemption to Buy America, again, under Harper. That allowed Canadian construction companies to sell their goods to American governments. That's the second thing I'd like to have. And I also want to, I want to make sure that anything we offer the Americans, particularly on national defense, are things we can pull back in the event that Trump goes back on his word. So if he suddenly hits us with a bunch of new unexpected tariffs out of nowhere, well, then we're going to pull back on the things that we've committed to do for him. One of the failures of the CUSMA negotiation and deal is the Liberals did not bake in any long-term leverage to say to the Americans, look, if you go back on CUSMA, well, we're going to withdraw these 4 or 5 things we've offered you. That's necessary because it's the only way to dissuade Trump from hitting us again in an unprovoked way like he did this time.
Now,
I agree. I agree with him. Now, I didn't agree with when he first came out on how he was saying he was gonna, match tariff for tariff for tariff. I think he actually scrubbed a lot of his supporters by doing that, because most of the people who are Trump kind of fans in Canada agree to a lot of his policies, which were and are conservative policies. But when you start going completely against the grain and fighting against somebody who's just trying to give free trade, the whole idea of free trade was never free. There was always concessions. And these concessions always favored the centrist part of Canada that controls the voting power. The lumber industry is always a secondary concern. That oil industry is way down the line, fishing way down the line, because it doesn't deal with the populace needed to ascertain power and then hold it, which is what we're seeing here today with the TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, that the Liberals are really pushing out. So I think he kind of lost a lot. And I was perturbed myself, because I was like, why wouldn't you just say, well, I would be on the phone. I would have delegates. I would right away say, let's start renegotiating. Let's just pause everything. Let's start renegotiating. The tariffs on steel and aluminum are global. That it is what it is. All the other little, barters and fights, that could all have been stopped. And Trump said, you retaliate, I'm gonna bark and bite even louder. And he's come through with that threat, which has changed policy globally, because people realized he wasn't messing around. He was serious. So, let me know how you feel in the comments. We're gonna move on. This is big, and again, mainstream won't talk about it. The Canadian government just froze another person's bank account. Yes, they did. This is Megan Murphy. This is a direct letter from her on this webpage. I'm going to read it off to you. This is the power that fascist governments do. This is direct election interference. Period. There should be charges laid against the Liberal government. There should be serious repercussions for doing this. Once again, like, share, and subscribe so that this gets out and pressure is put on mainstream by people seeing this and asking questions on why aren't you talking about this? This is pretty huge. You are literally removing seizing somebody's bank accounts in order to take them out of an election. This is wrong on so many levels. So the Canadian government froze my bank account just in time for the election. Looks like I won't be running to Canada for the foreseeable future. As most of my followers know, I left Canada in January 2021 out of a genuine concern that if I didn't, I would never be able to leave. I predicted I would be targeted by the government on account of my political dissidence, specifically due to my criticisms of COVID mandates, increasing authoritarianism, and attacks of free speech by the government, as well as on account of the fact that I have been the most prominent and vocal critic of gender identity, ideology, and legislation in Canada for over a decade now. I went to Mexico and watched things get progressively worse in Canada. My choice to leave was reaffirmed over and over again. When Trudeau's Liberals went after the Freedom Convoy and its supporters, freezing the bank accounts of Canadian citizens who had done nothing wrong but were fighting for their charter rights. I began limiting my dependence on Canadian banking institutions as well. This was a dangerous authoritarian government, and I didn't want to be left vulnerable and dependent on the government I suspected would attempt to silence and destroy me in one way or another. Despite this, I have maintained a much stronger connection to Canada than our apparent Prime Minister Mark Carney, as I have continued to return to the country to fight for women's rights, speak at events, visit family and friends, and to cover Canadian politics extensively in my work. I still hadn't completely given up on the country, and with an election pending, I saw one last opportunity to fight for change, and to force some conversations that had been suppressed in my progressive Vancouver East riding. Last month, I decided to run as a Canadian Member of Parliament and began to publicize my decision to run for the People's Party of Canada, the PPC. She says, the only party truly committed to fighting for freedom of women's sex-based rights. My candidacy was confirmed officially on Tuesday. That same day, I tried to access my bank account and could not. I contacted my bank, Vancity, and was informed the account had been frozen as per direction from the government. I had accessed my account just 2 days prior, so the timing was clear. I had not been informed of this freezing by anyone, not the bank, not the government. No one attempted to contact me. I was completely blindsided. When I contacted my bank, they refused to give me any information beyond the fact that they were following government orders, and they gave me a number and name to contact. I called the number and got a voicemail saying the employee was on vacation all week. Isn't that fitting? So basically, this guy froze my bank account and immediately went on vacation. I urge you to read this. I post everything in my description. This is not only unconstitutional, it's against the charter. It is literally fascist. And I say this over and over and over again. This is what fascist governments do. They are literally removing a person running against them. Political oppression at the highest level. Canada, what have we become? What have we allowed ourselves to become? Disgraceful. And now one last update on the person who lit that cop on fire in BC. Oh, Canada, Canada, Canada.
More tonight about the criminal record of the man who's accused of setting a Vancouver police officer on fire. An attack that was partially caught on video. As Kristen Robinson reports, it includes everything from assault to civil forfeiture.
The man accused of assaulting a peace officer and omitting to assist another after a VPD officer was set on fire was wanted province-wide on 10 outstanding charges. Since 2022, 40-year-old Jordan Mutual has been in and out of jail. Accused of possessing a prohibited firearm with ammo, a firearm without a license, and a weapon for a dangerous purpose. Then assault by choking, assault, uttering death threats, more firearms charges, and a breach. Months later, 2 more breaches. According to court documents, Mutual was released on $1,000 bail last May and ordered to live in this West End apartment building behind me under electronic monitoring and 24-hour house arrest. Less than a month before his arrest last Thursday, a warrant was issued for Mutual's arrest on 2 charges of breaching his release order.
Every time there's a horrific case like we saw, it's our job to understand if the system failed, and if it did fail, where were the gaps that we need to step in. So I do that every time, and I will be doing that in this case.
In 2020, Mutual was the subject of a civil forfeiture action over stacks of cash seized in 2 separate incidents. In November 2019, the VPD arrested Mutual on an outstanding warrant. A fanny pack containing $5,600 and $800 US was seized. In February 2020, he was arrested on a breach. A search found $6,500 cash and $5 US, plus a backpack with 14 cell phones. Drug testing on the cash confirmed fentanyl, methamphetamine, and cocaine contamination on each of the samples, according to the Notice of Civil Claim, which alleges the money has been used by Mr. Mutual to engage in unlawful activities, including trafficking controlled substances. When no response to the civil claim was filed by April 2021, the court ordered all the cash forfeited. Mutual remains in custody ahead of a bail hearing Thursday. Kristen Robinson,
Another
Global.
bail hearing. Another bail hearing. This is the soft on crime, slap on the wrist policies that were legislated because of the Liberal government. What they have done to our nation, it'll be marked in the history books, people, one way or the other. If Carney gets in and our country falls, it doesn't matter. It's going to be listed as such. It's known to the world already. A lot of Canadians are aware of this. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe and get the word out, because more Canadians need to see this. They need to understand just how bad it really is in Canada. We're a failed nation. Well, guys, that's the episode for today. Like I said, I have a lot of research to do. I got a couple of rabbit holes I'm trying to scrape myself out of, grabbing more names, numbered accounts, and individuals that are surprising to me on how many people are involved in some of these conspiracies. Until the next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. I have been your host, alias Tagai. Stay informed.